Hi, in this video I'll explain how to make robust plans by doing early quality assuring of your plans. I guess many of you have experienced that plans has to be changed because some unexpected enters into the planning or the plan as well. On this whiteboard I'll explain how to do it, and I'll also explain about the process, and I'll put some slides in the video so you can see more details about this, and you can stop and rewind to get repetition of the content. Welcome, my name is Henrik Søndergaard. In the next approximately half hour I'll give an introduction in one of the probably best methods to do planning. Let's get started.
Here you see the 5 main benefits you get by doing this kind of analysis.
Why should you do this? You should do this because you're getting a list of top 10 uncertainties in your project by using this method. Despite you have thousands of things going on or going on in your project when you're doing execution. Ben Flugler says, think slow, prepare yourself very well and act fast. By acting fast, you reduce the time where unexpected things can happen into your program or your project. An example could be bad weather, a storm or whatever, or a strike or whatever. Then it's also a matter of applying robustness into your plan, and by this method you can choose your robustness by yourself. It's about giving a comprehensive, coherent picture of your project, because when we're doing these kind of analysis, we engage the main key stakeholders in the analysis. And many tells us after such a workshop, wow, now we know about what this project is about, and they're on the same page, understanding the project, the goals and the uncertainties. Furthermore, this supports you're getting more in control of your economical part, so that supports your business. And the Norwegian AF Group is the second largest entrepreneur in Norway. They use this method since 2006. They have shown that the EBIT, earnings before income and tax, increased from 2.6 to nearly 6%. And the main reason that tells us this is using this method for cost analysis and time plan analysis. That's very interesting, and it's even more interesting because they are double their turnover by buying other companies when this increase happened. That's rather thought-provoking, I would say.
These results are really remarkable. So have a look in this video, how to do it.
And another effect is also that you get less stress in the organization because you reduce the number of replanning. Then you have to do this or this because the plan cannot keep. So you're reducing replanning. You're reducing stress in the organization, in the projects, in the project groups, and in the family back home. So why not do this? Okay, let me give you an introduction to this the next half hour. First, I will talk about some history of the method. This was actually invented by a man called Styring way back in 1971. He did his thesis about this triple point estimation technique. He found out that it needs some improvement in the method because we have to engage many stakeholders to have various viewpoints in the process. So we have various estimates so we can discover the minimum values, the maximum values and the most likely values. That is shown to be one of the big strengths of this method. After working for some years with the method in practical terms and with Norway and Sweden and in Denmark, he issued this book about proactive management by using this method. That was back in 2000. It's still valid, I would say. There's a recipe here, and there are examples and theory, etc. Then in September 2008, you can read it here, but you can find it in a slide.
It's really remarkable when a government implements such a method.
Then the Swedish road department introduced this method for infrastructure projects in Sweden by law, because they could see the benefits of this method. This method has also been used for many big projects, thousands of projects around Europe. And in one case it was about decommissioning of nuclear power in Sweden. Very big and complicated projects. This was a part of the cost of the project for decommissioning. They actually repeated this 3 years in a row to be more aware about what was needed in the project. In Norway, they are starting using the method back in the 90s, and in 1999, they issued a method called anslagsmethod. It's an estimation method run by the public sector, so there is a process outside this estimation technique as well. And this method has been improved several times throughout the years, and this is the latest version. When I'm using a method, I like to know if there's evidence this is really going to work. And there is. There is some research in Norway, and they have researched nearly 100 projects now, big governmental projects in the public sector, of course, and they can see that 80% of these projects closes below budget. That's rather interesting on a national scale. I really hope we can implement some of these methods in Denmark. Let's see. Then 2 years ago, I translated the book to Danish, if you're reading Danish. Then, I think it's 1 year ago, my colleague Thomas Lilskogen and Henrik Erdal issued this book. Very interesting book about how to use this method in practical terms. There are good samples there, and it's easy to read and understand. I really recommend this book. Recently there came out this very interesting report, because there are of course other methods that can give robust budgets and plans, and I think there are two good ones. The one about using the SUCCESSIVE method, and the other one called reference class forecast. That's made by Ben Flyberg and other people. This is a very good method. They're looking into historical data and analyze the data to give some uncertainty curves for various parts of a project. And then they can forecast project cost and duration. So I suggest we're using both methods for mega projects. There may be some overlap, but they are supplying each other. That could make the projects even more robust.
Here you see the full process of the analyze. In this video, we'll focus on the main activities for estimation.
Okay, next thing, I like to make a network diagram here for fictive projects, and I'll do some talk about how to do this, how to do the estimation of various kinds, and I'll comment on this. So let's go to this first. This is a workshop day. Normally it's from 1 to 2 days. We're doing a full analysis of a project depending on the complexity and the size of the project. It can also be boiled down to half a day with very small projects. So we introduce the project for the participants. You can imagine we are sitting in a room together, and maybe some people on Teams, and we are facilitating the process during the workshop.
It's really important that you compose a broad spectrum analyze group. Here you see some fictive persons with various profile colors.
We have gathered some of the most important key stakeholders to invite them to get an understanding of the project, but also to contribute to the uncertainty picture and an understanding of the project and do some estimations. So first, we do some brainstorming, and let me explain how this works. I'll just pick out my whiteboard.
It has many benefits to separate the deliverables from the surroundings.
Yes. This is an overlook of the process. What we really like to do is to separate what's inside the project from what's outside the project. We use a metaphor called an aquarium. So here we have an aquarium with our deliverables or activities, in this case.
Here you see a metaphor for the base case. It's our assumptions about how the project will look into the future. Here you see a metaphor for opportunities, and here you see a metaphor for risks.
Activities. But let's say if it was deliverables. In the aquarium there are a number of fish, and we know though the number can vary. A fish can die, or a fish can breed small fish, etc. There can be a number of plants growing, dying. There can be an amount of liter of water. We can control the temperature, the current, and the light, and the food, etc. So that is a kind of confined, controlled environment. And that's what we're going to describe in the project by all the activities, some small aquariums, so to speak. So these are here in a presumed base case situation or reference case situation. Here we have the uncertainties outside the project. We have something that we know in the surroundings, and we have something that is even more difficult, unknown, something that's going to hit our program with no notice and no knowledge. For instance, COVID-19, like war, etc. That's called black swans. So what are we doing with the group when we're doing this brainstorming session? Well,
you can stop the video and read more about how to do brainstorming.
We tell people, well, please start on making a note of these uncertainties just by keywords. Maybe you cannot see it, but anyway, it's keywords made by a pen, very simple, no computer, full brain capacity on the paper. Next the group will go for simple using post-its and write these keywords on their paper. And then they go to a big wall and they're putting down all of these. If we were a group of, say, 8 people, we normally get around about 100 of these keywords.
Participants are generating keywords of uncertainties.
This is a top-down method. And when we're going to do the estimation, we will not estimate one by one. So the next step is to sort these into groups. And before we do that, we are putting these into a matrix where we have some various areas we like to cover in our identification of uncertainties. That's a kind of quality assuring what we're doing. And sometimes I can see, well, there is an area there you cannot. How come there's nothing there? Is it relevant to put some in there, some uncertainties in there? And further, we also look into the upside, the opportunities. If people are, let's say, rather detailed and thinking most of risk, then I challenge them to think, okay, now we take the yes hat on and we look into the opportunities in this project. So back to the paper and write down, okay, often there comes more uncertainties in these. After putting these into the matrix, there will be a slide here, and there will be more slides as we go along. There will be a slide demonstrating a line case of this.
Here you see the matrix of uncertainties in the project.
After putting them into the matrix, we go to the next step. We sort these into groups. There will also be a slide there.
Here the keywords are sorted into groups.
And some of these groups could be competences and experiences, stakeholders, product management, requirement control, and we always have the last one, analyze uncertainty. What is analyze uncertainty about? Well, it's about giving your estimation of how good was the material we got from the project management to interpret the project, to get insight in the project. How was the composition of the analyzed group? Were we maybe negative or very positive or whatever? So this is the analyzed uncertainty. So now we have separated our aquarium from the surroundings. And that gives really strong benefits. Because imagine, I've experienced that at least one time, that competences and experiences, we had to outsource an update of a technical part of a wind turbine. Then we actually had to outsource the task. And people think, oh my God, what are we going to do now? Everything is going to be more expensive, take a longer time. Maybe not. So we had this line here. We can just revisit this line in our budget and make a new estimation. And it actually came up later in the workshop. One of our mitigations plan was to have a half-hour dialogue with a local project manager in India every day. That really helped us a lot. Okay, and when the project goes along, you might revisit these and make new estimations if the risk level has changed. Yes, there is someone working beside me. This is a new office and there are some construction working going around. An example of other projects that can have an impact on you. But I hope it's just a very low impact. Okay, so this was about some part of the overall process in the brainstorming, identifying uncertainties. This is very important. And if you're in a situation you don't have much time, then just do this part and ask yourself, will there be some groups? How could these groups influence our deliverables or activities? That would be a good start at least. Okay? Now I have to use the whiteboard. Before we go into the workshop, we have prepared ourselves, of course, and we have made a network diagram. The PM had made a network diagram with some of his colleagues to see the dependencies amongst the main activities.
Here you see the VBS for the plan. And here you see the network diagram before we go into estimate.
Here we have a limited number of activities in the beginning, let's say 10 to 15, because this is a top-down method. We like to search for the uncertainties. So it would be hard if we have a lot of details. But actually, it's possible to have a very detailed plan and to go up to the higher perspective, so to say. So I'll put the network diagram on this whiteboard now. And this is a rather simple project containing two subsystems. First, we look into the project scope and preparation. Well, it's okay with Danish, I guess. Then we go for design of system 1. And we go to design system 2. Here. So we have these two separate tasks to do. And then we're going to make a prototype of system 1.
The network diagram to be analyzed.
Then we have to test system 1. Then we're going to make a prototype. Then we're going to make a prototype of system 2. And we're also going to make a design of test rig system 2. It may be something big, and we're going to design whatever is needed. And then we're going to test system 2. And we're going to make a production test and an integration test of the two. So this is a network diagram. I'm just missing to draw some lines. First this up to here. And what we like to know is when this is done. So that's a question mark here. And still, these are small aquariums under controlled and assumed conditions here. So we have to add another one. That's a disturbance from the surroundings. We call them overall factors. You saw them on the whiteboard before as an orange box with various elements, competences, experiences, stakeholders, product management, requirement control, etc. So this is this one. We know there are relatively few opportunities in life to get things better, faster and cheaper, but there is an ocean of issues, elements that can make it worse. So let me put it up here.
This illustrates the effect of uncertainties to the duration of the project.
That's what we're interested to see. What's the effect from the uncertainty outside the project? And we normally know that in the beginning of a project, 80 to 90% of the uncertainties are outside the project. So that's where you're going to look, not inside the small details. Many people can have a tendency to talk about their own area and just to flag, well, this is risky, that is risky, and get a lot of information as PM. But be careful. You have to talk about what you don't know much about. That is stated by Professor Ole John Clarke from NTNU in Norway. So you have to look outside the project. That's there. So the brainstorming process, getting some of these uncertainties in that contribution. That's very important. Okay.
Each activity is described by an activity card.
So each of these activities are described by the PM and some of his colleagues in the project team, what's in these activities and what's excluded out of scope, etc. and some relationships perhaps. Okay.
This is an overview of the first estimations.
So now the group has to estimate. First activity.
This is a description of one of the uncertainties before we do the estimation.
And this could be weeks or months. So this activity could take down to 10 weeks and it could take up to 19 weeks and most likely 12 weeks. For this number we go for the lowest of the minimum estimates of the group, and for this one we go for the highest maximum from the group. And here we take the average. Then we do similar for that was the first system. That was the first step of estimation. So now we did the brainstorming as I showed on the whiteboard. We did the grouping of the estimation shown on the whiteboard. We have now estimated the deliverables or activity, in this case activities, and now we're going to estimate dependencies. What is dependencies in this case? Well, this is a matter about this activity prototype system 1. Could that actually start before the design was completed? In some cases it can, because, well, we start with the overall description and then maybe there will be some minor details here. But we can most likely start before here doing the prototype system 1. For instance, buying long lead items could be one of the activities.
Here the data are entered in the program called Futura.
The next thing we have to do is to enter these values in a program for making Monte Carlo simulations later on. But first we like to have the mean value calculated. And assume we have been doing that. I have the numbers here. So this is 13 weeks as mean value. This is 12 weeks. Later we actually realize that this is 13 weeks as well. It's just a coincidence that some of these are all 13. Yes. So the next thing we would like to do now is to see if we can compress the program, the project duration. Let's see, would it be possible to start this before we actually finished here? Okay. Let's have a look into that.
Here you see the estimations of overlap.
Normally we start from the finish towards the start to see how this can be compressed. As this always comes on top of the base cases or the aquariums, we cannot take this in here, so it always comes after these activities, these two activities. So that's the same here as well. And in this case here, the analyze group have realized that we cannot start production test before we have finished the test on system 1. So that will always have to finish after before starting production test. So we cannot do like this, it will always come here. That is at least what they assume. So that will be 0. Then the estimation group found out that we can actually start test of system 1 very early compared to prototype of system 1. So there may be some parts of the prototype that will be able to do some sub-tests or whatever. So in best case, this can start 10 weeks before this finished. In worst case, just 3 weeks before, and most likely 6 weeks before. Yeah. Then we have here, in this case, the prototype here can always start 6 weeks before this ends actually. The integration test can start, in best case, 6 weeks apparently before we are done by this. It says that the production test cannot start before we are finished by designing the test rig. Now we are done by estimating the dependencies. Okay. The next thing is to enter these data into a program and make a Monte Carlo simulation.
Dependencies and estimations of overlap are entered.
We're using a Monte Carlo simulation because these activities are strongly depending on each other, as you can see, in various ways. If it was just an analysis of project cost, it's more simple because we can assume many of these costs are mutually independent of each other. That makes it much easier to calculate. Okay, so now we have been doing the Monte Carlo simulation and we get this top 10 list of uncertainties. You can see that on the slide in the video now.
Here you see the top 10 list of the first iteration.
Okay, in the slide you can see the most critical activities is activity 80. So this method goes, the successive iterative way goes that look into the top ones of the top 10 list and see if you can decompose those into smaller activities that could be interesting. In this case, for demonstration, I just take this. I just take the top one, the 80. Let me put them there. Yes. So now we do a similar thing. We do a 3-point estimation and of the duration, estimation of the dependencies. And we enter the number in the program and make a new Monte Carlo simulation. Then we have a new top 10 list.
Here you see the top 10 list of the second iteration.
And we'll look into 2 or 3 of the most important ones to see where are the uncertainties. Normally they are up here because in the beginning of the project we had 80 to 90% of the uncertainties outside the project. That's what we often realize. We have to look here outside the project. This kind of successive iteration we do 2, 3, maybe 4 times and then we're done.
Here you see the duration plan. Note that there are more than one critical path here.
Next, we have to make a time plan. This is a duration plan. We have a lot of assumptions here, but we have to look into reality, so to speak.
You can see another video for more details.
So here, let's assume we have 5 people here doing 12 weeks of work, but maybe we could go for 8 people, or maybe it should be 12 people, depending on the applications, their availability, training, etc. And availability is about if people are engaged in more than one project, and that's often the case. So maybe we can just take 50% of one, 60% of one, 20% of one person. So we go, for instance, into a Microsoft project and put in this duration plan, and then we plan the activities here by adding resources to see how that has an influence to our project. Next thing we do.
Here you see the estimates of the general uncertainties.
We do the overall estimation of the overall factors of these groups, as I showed on the whiteboard before. And then we went into the successive decomposition of these uncertainties. And then we choose the robustness, how much robustness we put in. And we look into the S-curve. And the S-curve shows us if we would like to have a robustness of 85%, that is, there is only 50% risk of exceeding the plan, then we can see how many weeks that we actually have to add into the plan.
Next, we'll add robustness in the plan.
Let's say we have 12 weeks to add into the plan to get a robustness of 85%. Then I'm going to place these 12 weeks in various places where I have a high degree of uncertainty. And the top 10 list of uncertainty may indicate those. Yeah? So this buffer of robustness I actually get in the end of the day. I'll place those in various places here. Yeah? And I'll also have to put in vacation, and I'll show that in the slides in the video, and I have to do some other adjustments as well.
Here you see a time plan where we have included robustness, either or risk, etc.
So this was actually a very brief introduction to how you can do a quality assurance of your project, so you get robustness and you get idea about where are the uncertainties, are they mostly outside the project in the stage you're in, or are they inside the deliverables? And at the end of the day of such a workshop, you start making mitigation plans. So you take the top 10 list and look into, let's say, 5 of those and brainstorm with a group which mitigations could we do to reduce uncertainty, to reduce risk, to enhance opportunities in a project. Because sometimes there are opportunities, and often we look into risk, but we have to look into opportunities as well. That we have to remember when we're doing the brainstorming and doing these post-its. Sometimes you have to urge the estimation group about, okay, let's take the yes hat on and do some identification of opportunities.
The final step is to present our results.
When we are done, then we invite some of the main stakeholders that were just present here, because normally we like to have some of the main stakeholders present here to be a part of the brainstorming part, so they also can contribute, because they normally have some knowledge that I'm not aware about, because they are out there in the organization and in contact with a lot of people in other projects. So they might have some ideas that could be added up here in the overall factors. Okay, so we do a presentation of our analyze, we're doing a presentation of the top 10 list, the S-curve, and also the main mitigations plans. Then we're actually done on the workshop. And after such workshop, we normally hear people, now, okay, now I understand what this is about. Now I understand about what we have to take care of. Now I know what we are going to do because we have some mitigation plans. That's it. But don't do this at home, because this may look easy, but it's not that easy. There are some pitfalls we have to avoid when we're doing this. That's why it needs some training from you facilitating in such a process and avoiding to fall down in the pitfalls. Because if you do it wrong, this can give even wrong figures, and it could overestimate or you could underestimate your duration. And that may have great effects to your plans and decision about your project as well. Thanks for now, and remember, there are uncertainties on the way in your projects, both in office but also in your home, in your private life. But there are also opportunities. And this is an opportunity to get a more robust project, increase the quality in your project, increase the understanding by your project members, to get to know where to focus, despite you have thousands of things in major projects with high complexity. Thanks for now. You can see more about my videos. There is some links beneath the video. Bye.